When lives give you lemons, you make lemon meringue pies. Welcome back everyone. Today we're making one of my favorite desserts and my mom, so this video is for her, the lemon meringue pie. Think about a sweet, lemony and acidic filling on top of a delicious, crusty and flaky pie, topped up with some delicious meringue. That dessert was invented in the 17th century back in France, so it's been done so many times since then. But you know what? It might be old recipe, but still fantastic. Two things remain to be done for the first video of the year. For us to get cooking and for you to subscribe. Let's go. Alright, so first we're going to start working on the sweet dough, pâte sucrée. So in a bowl I'm going to place some salt, some flour, as well as some icing sugar. This is very important for the final texture to make sure it's very crumbly. I'm going to give that a quick mix with my tiny whisk, actually I should say my medium-sized whisk. And then I will place that on the bench. You could also do it in a bowl if you don't have a flat enough surface. I will then add my high quality butter, make sure everything is really cold. I even put my flour in a freezer. And then we're gonna start mixing it all together. The idea is to crumble it together so it becomes almost like pea size. I will then create a well where I'm going to place my egg yolk. Once we are there, we are going to mix it with our hand until the dough becomes smooth and all fully combined. The key here is to work as fast as possible. We do not want to overheat and overwork the dough. Once we're happy with the texture, we have something fully combined, we're gonna wrap it in plastic and you wanna make sure it's quite flat so you already pre-shape the pie size. It will make the rolling of it later a bit easier. We're looking at about 1 to 2 inches thick. We're gonna wrap it and place it in the fridge for 2 hours to rest, but at least make sure you leave it for 1 hour. It's going to be nice and cold and rested so the gluten is not activated. Once we're done with that step, we can start working on the lemon curd. So in a bowl, I'm going to place my whole eggs as well as my sugar, the lemon juice, and then we're going to give that a quick mix, make sure everything is combined together. And then we're going to move on to the next step, which is to transform that into a sabayon. We'll first place the bowl on top of a double boiler to come to temperature, and meanwhile we'll put the gelatin in some water just so it can bloom gently. We'll go back to the curd and we're gonna whisk it until it's fully thick and you are able to see the curd. I will then take it out of the heat. Also make sure you can always put your hand underneath like I've showed you before. And then we're gonna start adding our gelatin. Make sure we squeeze all the water out because that's not part of the recipe. You really want just the gelatin that will help it set later for the tart. We're gonna incorporate it by whisking it, so it's important that you do it while it's still hot. I will then take my hand blender. If you don't have one, you can also whisk the butter in, but the idea is to incorporate slowly pieces by pieces so it doesn't split until the entire amount is fully incorporated. I have then prepared a dish with saran wrap so it doesn't create a skin, and I'm gonna lay my curd flat so it can cool down way faster. I will then add another layer of saran wrap over top. Same idea, I don't want to create a skin, and we're going to place that in the fridge until it's fully set, probably about an hour based on your setup of your fridge. Alright, now we're going to start prepping a mold. I'm using individual mold, but you could also do a single tart shell. It's absolutely fine, same idea. I'm going to grab some cold butter and going to roll it around the side of the dish, then place it in flour. Make sure we shake out all the excess, and you're going to end up with a nice clean mold. Basically the idea is for the tart to come out perfectly once we're done cooking it. I will then place that in the fridge to rest. 1 hour later. So our dough is rested and really hard, so we're gonna take it out of the fridge so it can come back to temperature. Meanwhile, I'm gonna set my curd into a piping bag and we're gonna place that back to the side when we are ready and our tart shells are cooked. So now we can start rolling our dough. So we're gonna place a bit of flour underneath as well as on top of the dough and in your hand. And we're gonna roll it thin. The higher quality the butter, the easier that step will be. If you use, I would call it watery butter, the pie might crack easier, so just be a little bit more careful. First, we'll start on the base of the tart. I'm gonna take a ring cutter that is the same size as a ring mold, and I'm gonna do my 4 rings. I will then place them in the bottom of the pie shell And then we're gonna next move on to the side. So I'm gonna take a ruler and I'm gonna cut a 3/4 of an inch strip, which I will then take very carefully. That's very important, the one they're going to break. And we're gonna place them around the pie shell just as so. If they are too big, you can cut some, and if they're too short, you can also add a little bit. But you know, after you're doing 1 or 2, you should be able to have the perfect size. If you have any extra dough, you can do more tart, or you can leave it in your fridge for another time. And it's very important to let the dough cool down so it doesn't shrink when we bake it. 20 minutes later. Alright, our dough is hard again and nicely rested. I'm going to take a fork and I'm going to make some holes that will also help the dough breathing, and it's not going to fluff up and it's going to stay nice and flat. We are going to blind bake our tart, which means we're not going to bake them with the content, but just the dough itself. So I'm going to take some tin foil, make sure they espouse the side of the tart, and I'm going to fill them with beans. You can use any type of beans or even the little whey that they sell now in confection store. Then we're gonna cook them. I'm gonna place them in a 350 oven for 12 minutes. 12 minutes later, we're then going to open the oven again. We're gonna remove the beans and the tin foil because now the sides are almost cooked, so it's not going to collapse. And then I'm going to bake them until they're fully cooked, about 8 to 10 minutes based on your oven. And now we have some beautiful little pie. They're nice and golden brown and crispy, and we're gonna let them rest for about 10 minutes until they cool down. We will then, using a microplane, we're gonna smooth the edges and the top so all the pie are perfect and regular. Once we're done with that, we're gonna start working on the meringue. We're gonna do an Italian meringue, and I've already showed you how to make meringue in a full video, which I will add to the top right of your screen so you can refer back to the video. Next, we are going to pipe our delicious lemon curd into a tart. Make sure you fill it up first, and then you can top it up if you have any extra leftovers. And you want to make sure it's smooth. So I'm gonna grab the pie and I'm gonna make sure the lemon curd is all over the pie. Make sure it's nice and flat and smooth using my little palette knife. And if you don't have one, you can use also the back of a regular knife. We'll then place them to the side, ready to be piped. So I'm going to take my Italian meringue that I will transfer into my piping bag. You could do different type of shape. You can either do like a big blob or some little dollops. It's really up to you. You can also do some star shape. I mean, honestly, the world is your oyster. In this case, I'm gonna do some medium-sized dollops as well as some small, and they're gonna look very pretty. What I love about that design is the little pointy side. I will then take my blowtorch and I'm gonna burn them slightly. If you don't have one, you could also put your oven on broiler. Just do it fast so you don't actually warm up the curd. At this point, we're almost done. The last touch is going to be using my microplane and rasp a little bit of lime zest. Obviously, this is accessories, but they look cute. And here we have it, a decadent French lemon meringue pie with a delicious filling, sweet, acidic, and a little bit tart, topped with some brulee meringue, and with a so yummy, crusty, and flaky pie. If you enjoyed this recipe, please like, comment, and subscribe, and the recipe will be in the description below. As always, I'm going to enjoy this in just a second, so I will catch you on the next episode.